Hello, everybody, and welcome to Masters of Real Estate. Today, I have Dave Dubeau on the line here, and we are going to talk all about how to raise capital from investors and some of the strategies that you can deploy to bring in accredited investors into your network, to nurture them, to be able to get them to build the trust with them, to be able to invest with you in your deals and get that through the pipeline. So, Dave, thanks so much for joining us today. Could you give us a little bit of background on yourself, what your background experience is and what you do now, man?
Awesome, Matthew. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I've been in the real estate space since 2003 after living overseas in beautiful San Jose, Costa Rica for 10 years.
Nice.
I got married, had kids down there, and dragged my Costa Rican family kicking and screaming back to Canada in 2003. Everybody says, tropical paradise, frozen hinterland. Why would you do that? Well, two little kids get towards school age. You don't realize what you got till you leave it for a while. So Canada is a much better place to grow up. So that's what we did. Had to start all over again from scratch. Saw one of those infamous late night infomercials. You too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down. Perfect. That's what I had. Sent away for the course. I think it was VHS cassettes, maybe not, but it was pretty old school. And did a whole bunch of deals. 18 deals, 18 months is kind of how I got started in real estate in, crappy mobile homes and creative low money, no money down type stuff.
Nice.
Kind of a background in marketing, ended up hooking up with a real estate guru up here in Canada, kind of the Canadian version of Robert Kiyosaki.
Nice.
Worked with him for, 10 years, helped him kind of blow his company up. Then he blew his company up and that kind of went to crap. Ended up getting back into doing my own thing. Did different things with real estate in the meantime, but realized early days, I kind of suck as an operator. I enjoy things more from the marketing side of things. So for the last dozen years, Matthew, I've been focusing on helping capital raisers raise money. And I started off helping mom and pops get started with that, raise their first $500,000 to $1 million kind of thing. I was doing a lot of stuff personally to market myself and my agency, for lack of a better term, and tried all sorts of stuff like, pay-per-click and Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff. Got frustrated with the algorithm changing all the time. I was doing live events and that was great until COVID hit. That put a kibosh. Switched over into virtual events, all this kind of stuff. Then in 2018, I had started a podcast of my own, and I was kind of trying to do it like everybody else, try to interview the big guys, the Kiyosaki, the Cardones of the world, and grow a huge, big audience, and hope that some of those people realize that I'm kind of smart and hope they figure out how to connect with me and hope they do. And not much was actually happening. And then about 3 years ago, I was listening to a podcast and somebody way smarter than me said, hey, you know what? Instead of trying to grow a big audience and hope some of them become clients, why don't you just turn it around and interview your ideal clients in the first place? And instead of doing one interview every week or two, why don't you do multiple interviews a week? I thought, man, that's brilliant. So just skip to the front of the line. So I switched my whole podcast over to a lead generator and went from doing one interview every couple of weeks to doing, at the peak, no, warning, don't anybody try to do this at home. At the peak, I was doing 30 interviews a week.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
Wow. That's a lot of interviews. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've geared it back. We're doing about, on average, 12 interviews a week right now. And that's about my happy place. But it turned into my number one way of connecting with people and generating business for my company. And then in 2024, I was thinking about this and I thought, you know what? I think this would work really, really well, not for the mom and pops, but for syndicators and fund managers. So more established capital raisers. So we turned this into I dialed this in for myself and we turned it into kind of a turnkey done for you system. And that's what we do these days, Matthew, is we work with, serious experienced capital raisers like syndicators and fund managers. And we build them a podcast. We fill it up with their ideal investor avatar, get them 4 or 5 interviews booked every week, 20 a month, and help them convert those interviews into discovery calls and then those discovery calls into capital. And then
very interesting.
Takes care of all of the nitpicky details in the background. So that way the client just kind of shows up on Zoom with a clean shirt and a smile and has these conversations.
That's awesome. So you basically, and when you're targeting accredited investors
Yeah.
on this, or investors that are going to put capital in, you're coming to them saying, "Hey, I want to come and do an interview with you," and you get to know them at the same time, which is awesome, and see what they're interested in and what their pain points are and those types of things, and also get to share with other people at the same time what people go through, right? What different stages of investment people are at, right? Where
Well,
they're
it's
brand new
actually a little bit
investors.
different than that, Matthew. So
Okay,
most of these people, I mean, we have to zoom out for a second, like you and I are so immersed in real estate and
for
all this
sure.
kind of stuff, we assume everybody else in the world is a real estate nut nerd like we are. They aren't. Surprise, surprise. So what I looked at, I zoomed out, I said, who are most accredited investors? They are successful business owners and entrepreneurs. They are successful professionals, doctors, lawyers, dentists,
Hmm.
all that. They are successful C-suite executive type people. So what do these folks all like to do? Most of them like free publicity, especially the business owners and professionals. They like free marketing. They like
Right.
exposure. Everybody likes to kind of strut their stuff and brag on themselves a little bit because they don't get much opportunity to do that at home or at work, right? So what we do is really quite different. It's counterintuitive, Matthew. The podcasts that we create have nothing to do with real estate and only a little bit to do with investing. And it's kind of like an oh by the way kind of thing.
More business in
So
general.
yeah, it's
Not
basically it's all around personal, professional, and financial success. Right? That's what the goal is. And then the goal
awesome.
of the interview is to really make the guest look good, feel good, sound good. Like it's all about them. I call this leading with the giving hand. It's 100% about shining the spotlight on them. It's not me trying to,
Right.
slip in there and pitch some real estate
Push your
type stuff.
investments or do any of that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
no.
You're just trying to help them.
Yeah,
Right.
trying to give them a really good experience, really good platform. And the beautiful thing is what happens then, Matthew, is the best way I've ever seen to shortcut rapport building and
Right.
reciprocity, right?
Right.
So they come on the show, they're feeling a little bit nervous. Most people that are getting interviewed are not like you and I that have been interviewing people forever and have been lots of different podcasts. In fact, I had one client, he interviewed a $1 billion fund manager.
Huh.
Guy had never been on a podcast before. He was peeing his pants nervous ahead of time. So it was flipping the switch, right? Because my client was kind of he was a successful syndicator, but not anywhere near that level. There's no way
Right.
he would have gotten a meeting with this dude. And
Right.
if he did, he would have been feeling all weird and nervous.
But you're putting them up on a pedestal and saying, we're going to do something and benefit you. And you're adding a ton of value for these people as well
Yeah.
by doing that. And, getting them exposure, like you said, and being able to have them tell their story and what they've been through, which
Yeah.
most business owners don't get the opportunity to do because we've been through so much pain and have so many stories. It's crazy, right? So, yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, so it's just a great way to make that connection. And then the trick here, Matthew, there's a method to the madness. So the trick is towards the end of the interview, and we keep them short and sweet, about 15 to 20 minutes. Towards the end, you say, let's say we're interviewing a successful doctor, let's say a plastic surgeon or something like that. We're talking about his clinic and all that kind of stuff. Towards the end, I'd say something like this. Well, Dr. Smith, a lot of successful professionals in your position, they're doing really, really well financially right now. But they're clocking in a lot of hours to make that happen. And some of them are looking to the future and they want to keep that level of income up without working so hard. So they're kind of looking at different investments and different opportunities, these kind of things. What are your thoughts about that? So we don't directly go, hey, Dr. Smith, what are you investing in? Have you ever invested in real estate? No, but we just kind of open the conversation in a very gentle manner. What if he says, again, I zip my mouth. We don't talk about real estate right there. But here's where the trick, here's where the magic happens, Matthew. Once we stop the interview, we're still on Zoom or Riverside with the other person. So I just check in, give them the details when it's going to be coming out. And then I say something like this. Hey, Dr. Smith, great job on your clinic. You're doing some great things here. Now, you mentioned that you're starting to dabble a little bit in crypto and you've got a portfolio of stocks and bonds. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the kind of returns you're getting on those investments, the security and the stability of those? Is that something that you're 100% happy with? Or is there maybe a little chance for improvement? Now, what do you think they're going to say, Matthew?
Yeah, so for sure, there's always improvement chances, of doing this,
Exactly.
right? And especially if they don't have the time, that's one of the biggest challenges with business owners or doctors
Yeah.
or attorneys or high net worth invest people like that is they don't have the time because they've built their wealth over here and now they want to be able to invest passively in opportunities. And you see this over and over again where they're in this trap, just like any other business owner, where they're working for their job consistently and it's hard for them to build cash flow streams that they can retire off. And they don't even realize that a lot of these options exist. A lot of people think, hey, you got to invest in rental properties directly or flip houses directly or go buy a multifamily and do all the work and everything. They don't realize you can invest passively in these other opportunities. And so,
Well, a lot of them aren't
you
even really aware of real estate, right? I
right.
mean, we're in this world. We think everybody knows about it. They don't, right? So what we do there is they say, yeah, there's always room for improvement. I say, well, that's really cool, Dr. Smith. Well, we're doing something really interesting with busy doctors like yourself in the alternative investing space in apartment buildings, for example. I don't say multifamily because that's real estate jargon, right?
Mm,
Apartment
mm.
buildings, everybody understands. In apartment buildings. And we're able to get our investors very solid, steady Eddie double-digit returns on their money, backed by a real tangible asset that's in huge demand. And at the same time, quite often we're able to save them a huge chunk on their taxes. Is that something you might be interested in taking a look at? Boom, book them into a follow-up discovery call, get them in the system, nurture, all that kind of
Right.
good stuff, and convert them over time.
That's awesome. I love the way you're able to cut through and get right, to the trust building by doing the interview process and getting to know somebody like that. And when you're focusing on the person involved versus yourself, it builds trust even faster because they're able to tell the story and they feel like they got to know you even more, even if they did most of the
They
talking
did
in
all
that
the talking,
situation,
yeah.
right? So,
You're such an
right.
amazing conversationalist. Oh, well, you did all the
Yeah, because
talking.
listening makes you the best conversationalist. That's
Absolutely.
why. So,
Yeah.
and this is something that I think a lot of capital raisers or operators that are trying to raise capital for their deals don't understand, right? This is one simple method to be able to bring lead flow in the door for you, build the trust, and be able to have them invest with you. But there's a ton of strategies to do that, right? Like we utilize email sequences and nurturing sequences where someone comes into our database and we have an email sequence that goes out just getting to know us,
Yeah.
right? Same thing with long term. We go through and develop a launch sequence for each one of the deals. We do classes and things like that to teach people these topics as well across the board. We also go out and do tons of content just like this, where we're going out and consistently educating and trying to teach anybody we can just to add value to the environment. And there's so much that you can do, of course, but something simple like this, where you're doing a strategic, a strategic way to be able to get in front of a ton of accredited investors over and over again. If you're getting in front of 15 accredited investors a week and having those meetings with accredited
No,
investors every single
most
week,
guys don't have that much time, so we're getting them.
well,
We're getting them five.
great, great. Yeah. And so if you're able to set those things up over and over again and get 5 of these every single week, I mean, you think about what that does. That's 20 a month.
Yeah.
You multiply that by $100,000 each and, you're talking a couple $1,000,000 there really easily, very quickly to be able to, really wrap up your capital raise if you're able to do that. If they invest, of course, and there's going to be a percentage that don't and a percentage that needs to get to know you more and realize if you're capital raising that there is a nurture timeline and a trust building timeline from them starting to get to know you to the point where they feel comfortable enough to invest. That timeline can vary. And so sometimes a lot of people see leads coming in the door like this and they think it's not working. I'm not raising any money from this, right? But then they just haven't put in the time to get to know these people over a period of time and show them who they are as a person, teach them how you mitigate risk on your deals and things like that and how you protect them and the benefits, quite frankly, because there's quite a few of those misconceptions out there of people not understanding, how do they protect themselves and stuff like that. Being able to get in front of people and explain to them the strategies you've deployed to be able to mitigate risk is massive from a trust building perspective. So your strategy works very, very well. I can see that from being able to bring in lead flow and capital into your pocket that you're trying to raise for.
Well,
So
we kind of
I
came up with a
commend you
little
for
bit of a
that. It's pretty cool.
shortcut as well, Matthew. So early days, yeah, that's what we were kind of trying to do, and it was a little bit hit and miss. So now we're really dialing it in with our clients. And we got specific goals for each step of the process. So goal number one is have a great interview, make your guest feel great and look great, create that rapport, create that sense of reciprocity, create the curiosity about your deals, right? And then step number two is get them invited onto a discovery call. The discovery call is really to kind of get to know them a bit better and give them the big, broad strokes about what you're doing and maybe show them an example deal, but do not pitch them a specific deal. It's way too much, way too fast.
Right.
However, we weren't dialing that part in as well as we could have. So what we started doing recently is working really well, Matthew, that'll help a lot of your folks as well, is having a specific goal for that first discovery call. So if it's not to get them to cut you a check for $100,000, what is it? It's to get what I call a warm commitment. So here's what we do. At the end of that discovery call, let's say you're Dr. Smith and things have gone really well with this. And what I'd say, hey, Dr. Smith, so glad you like the idea of this. Let me ask you a question. We don't have any opportunities at the moment, but would you like to have like first dibs or get first eyes on opportunities when they do become available? Right? Pretty easy ask. What do you think the guy's going to say?
Right.
Yes, I'd like to take a look at them. Okay, great. Well, let's do this. Let's add you to our VIP investor list, and we'll just get a bit more information from you. And then you go through and just fill out a quick little, can be something as simple as a Google form that's kind of like an expression of interest, right? And you say, okay, Dr. Smith, if you were to invest with us, how much do you think you'd be comfortable investing? 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 or more? Bang, get that information. If you were to invest, where would that capital be coming from? Savings, other investments, HELOC, just figure out where. And if something came along, what time frame do you think you would want to be able to invest in? So like, how long would it take you to access that capital to invest in a deal? Yeah. So you get all of this information. Do you feel like you qualify as an accredited investor? If you're not sure what that is, here's what that means. Yes. So you get all of this information from the
list of like 10 questions just to get information on them
just
as
kind of
well.
like
Right.
what you probably have in your investor portal to get people kind of signed up there. We just do that with them on the spot. They get a copy. We get a copy. Now I know they're keen. And then even if you got a deal on the go right now, that's okay. Wait a couple of weeks, circle back with them. Make sure you got a trickle campaign going through with some education and everything you were talking about there. You can circle back. Hey, Dr. Smith, I got something I think you might be really interested in taking a look at. Would you like to book a call? Boom. Much easier to get them in, get them going that way versus going straight for the jugular. If that makes sense, Matthew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you're looking at this, it's really important that a lot of, capital raisers out there don't understand the process that you just talked about, right? You are creating a funnel system, getting information about them so that way you can go and reach out when specific opportunities come up and setting them up for being able to invest with you in this soft commitment type format. And, a lot of people don't realize, hey, you can't ask for the sale until you've built the trust. So you have to go through and build this trust first. You have cut through way of doing that with the interview format piece, and then doing the follow-up soft commit makes it a much more likely chance of them being comfortable with a follow-up call because you just did this interview, with them in the first place. And now you're creating the funnel system to be able to, and the information system to say, now you're ready to invest. You're on my list of investors, and now you built a solid list, not just some random list of people that may or may not have interest, and been able to segment that list. And then it comes down, a lot of people miss out on this, is the sales process on the back end is extremely important, from the follow-up systems to the communication that you have, the calls with them to push them along the pipeline. What happens is I find that a lot of capital raisers or investors out there, they come in and they start doing great at bringing in leads, right? They're doing podcasts out there. They're going and doing marketing. They're out there at networking events all the time, and they're bringing lead flow in. But but they stop there and they don't have a good follow-up system. And, they think I got to get more leads. And most of the time they don't necessarily need more leads. They need a better system on the back end from the sales process to process those leads and bring them back to life and, get them to reach back out to you, and the right mentality and the hooks in the marketing campaign where, how do you get them to click on an email when they get 1,000 other emails coming in when you're trying to communicate with them? It's the hooks in the front. How do you get them to take action when you need them to? It's the things at the bottom where you say, here, do this, take action here, click this button, set up the call with us, and asking those questions, along with building trust and adding value, that people don't always understand and put together when it's all part of the same flowing process. And if you don't have that dialed in and the back end process is broken, you're never going to raise capital, and you're going to think none of this works and I'm just getting leads that lead to nothing. It really just has to do with that back end process and making sure if you don't have a deal, they're staying nurtured the whole time and you're able to, continue to reach out to them and add value to them as much as possible. So, I love the strategy you're deploying here, and I think it's extremely valuable. And so when you take on a client, when they're actually doing this on the podcast, what's the process you typically put them through to start when they're working with you on this to bring in leads? You said you're helping them get 5 podcast, leads or interviews per week or something along those lines, which is already crazy a lot. I mean, you're talking if they're 15 to 20 minutes, maybe you could, it's
actually very efficient. So we set it up so our clients are doing interviews twice a week, 2-hour time blocks. We block out 40 minutes. So that means they can do 2 or 3 interviews in that 2 hours. 5 minutes for kind of before you start the recording, just to break the ice and connect with the person. 20-minute interview, 5 to 10 minutes afterwards to get them into the follow-up discovery call. A few minutes break between interviews, and then bang, the next one. So it's very, very efficient. Now, to answer your question about how do we do the lead gen, yeah, we do this for our clients because most of them are crazy busy doing other stuff, right? And they're not great marketers like you are, right? So it's a real struggle for most people. So it's really quite
for sure. It's a big learning curve.
Simple, but not easy. So what we do, Matthew, what's working really good right now is we start off with who are your existing investors? And which ones of those would you like to kind of clone? Like, the 80-20 rule and all that kind of good stuff, right? So out of your investors, who would you like more of just like that? And then here's what we do. We just have a shortcut. So if that investor is on LinkedIn, first thing we'll do is we'll invite them to be one of the first guests on the show. So interview your own investors first, right? Then to find more like that, if they're already on LinkedIn, chances are they're connected to a whole bunch of other people who are very similar to them. And those are second degree connections on LinkedIn. And then we'll go out on their behalf through their LinkedIn and say, hey, our mutual connection, Joe Schmo or Dr. Smith, I just interviewed him on my podcast. Great interview. Here's a link. You can check it out. And by the way, we were checking out your LinkedIn profile. Thought you'd make an amazing guest for the show. Here's what's in it for you. Would you like to be a guest? Bang. So we just kind of do that LinkedIn, but we do more than that. So we'll do LinkedIn outreach. In fact, I think my team's been reaching out to you a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So we'll do LinkedIn outreach. We'll do emails, and we'll actually do phone calls as well. Whatever it takes to consistently get those 4 or 5 interviews booked every single week. So that's what we do there, Matthew.
That's great. That's awesome. And there's some great strategies out there that you can utilize on the social media platforms. We go through and, different content for each platform. When you do your distribution, you want to be able to go get, edited clips and get it out there as well, and have a good reputation of providing content. Really, honestly helps you get those bookings with the podcast guests because it adds reputation, adds credibility, and they're seeing how active you are, out there with your marketing.
That's
and
the other beautiful thing, just
value.
like you guys do with your show, you do it so well. That's what we do for our clients. We take every episode that they do, we slice and dice some reels out of it for them, as well as for their guest. And then we take the transcript, we put it through AI, we create really good LinkedIn articles, Facebook posts, Instagram posts, blog articles, emails for their guest, as well as for our host. So it's just super, it's kind of like done for you social media content as well. episode.
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
great because it's so much work to do that kind of stuff. It's like if I didn't have my team helping me with that,
It
it'd be
wouldn't happen. Yeah.
impossible to
Yeah.
do, right? It's very, very hard to do because you're talking about a lot of editing, a lot of pushing, stuff out there and content consistently along to your database as well on the back end. And that consistency is very important from a trust standpoint. If you come out with an email once every 3 months or something like that, you're just kind of like sporadic. That reflects poorly on you to be able to do that, right? You need to be able to consistently do outreach over and over again. And, there's so many components of raising capital that it gets important to understand, kind of putting this in perspective in a nutshell from, all of the different components, because you're dealing with one component of lead capture, but then, closing those actual investors with one particular strategy. When I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, there's all different parts of the capital raise
Yeah.
process. There's the content distribution and side that you have to consistently make content and consistently be teaching other people how to actually invest and due diligence and about operations management. And that all shows how good of an operator you are or how you've done your homework on your deals. And it shows other people your knowledge base, right? That builds trust that you can now go out to your own database as well as distribute it on social media, right? So that's one component of it, along with the email captures and having your own nurturing system on the back end, and then the lead generation in the first place. Every single post we do on LinkedIn has a purpose and has a call to action at the end where we can say, come do this. Here's this piece of value. How do you get them into your lead flow and then into your database to then go through the nurturing sequence with those particular people, right? And then how do you get from point A of no trust to point Z of complete trust as fast as possible? And I feel like you've created this awesome hack on how to do that very effectively in this way through the proper process and strategy you've implemented. But then, like I mentioned, it's also the investor relations side, the sales side of things on the back end. And then you also have some other outside nurturing. People go through and do, swag bags for their clients and send them free gifts. They go through and have investor dinners. They do all different types of things from a nurturing standpoint, because once they're in your database, the leads are way more effective and your investors are way more valuable because they've already trusted you. They've already invested with you a lot of times. And so those people reaching out to them for additional referrals and stuff like that can be valuable. So there's so much from point A to point Z over here on the capital raise front. Sometimes you can get lost in the weeds and you're realizing, wow, I could just do one strategy and get plenty of leads coming in and not do hardly any of this other stuff if I don't want to, and just focus on just these small leads that are coming in that are much more effective from a trust building exercise.
Do you
really
want to hear kind
stuff.
of another secret hack we've kind of figured out recently, Matthew? I think you might appreciate.
Absolutely. Secret
Oh,
hacks
man.
are great.
So I've been looking for because again, it's a bit of it can be a slow burn, right? Because you're going from stranger to discovery call, and even you do a good job with that. It's like you don't want to ask somebody to marry you on the second date typically, right?
Right.
It
You're taking your
takes a
time.
while there.
Right.
So I was looking at how can we get a bigger bang for a buck for our clients faster? And then I thought, why don't we just really help them leverage their existing investor base? So this is what we do now with new clients, Matthew, is we get them, especially if they got 50, 60 investors or whatever it is, 24, whatever it is, right? Get them to an interview anywhere between 15 and 25 of their existing investors first, when they're first starting their podcast. And when we do this properly, it accomplishes 5 things. First thing is, our new host gets some really easy at-bats with people they already know, they feel comfortable with. So they get over those jitters of doing an interview. So that's it. Number 2 is it creates a whole bunch of content to launch their show with a bang, because most podcasts make it to episode 7 and fizzle out because there's so much damn work involved, right? And then the 3 other things are huge. When you do this properly, and here's the trick, do your homework before you get your investor on the podcast. Find out, have the numbers, like how much do they invest? How much did you pay them out? How did it all work out? And then before you start the interview with them, let's say you were my investor, Matthew. I'd say, hey, Matthew, thanks so much for being one of my inaugural guests. Really looking forward to this. It's going to be an easy peasy interview, very conversational. But I'd also love to, if you could stick around at the end for about 10 minutes. I just want to do a quick little touch base with you about your investment with us. Is that okay? So get them to commit to staying a few minutes extra, do the interview, stop the interview, okay? Then do a quick little overview recap. So Matthew invested 100,000 with us in XYZ project back in 2021, lasted 3 years. We exited. You got your $100,000 out plus whatever and X number of disbursements for a total return of whatever it was, right? Because you've completely forgotten how that worked. It's been a while, right? Okay, so you remind them about that. Then you're still on Zoom. You've started a new recording. Then here's a trick. I ask some open-ended questions. So Matthew, how do you feel about the kind of returns that you got with us on that investment? Blah, 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 blah. What was it like working with myself and the team? Blah, 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 blah. You were investing a lot in stocks and bonds. How does this compare, as far as returns and stability and security compared to some of your other investments? Blah, 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 blah. I know you're a little bit nervous about doing that. If somebody's thinking about this, what would you tell that person about investing in alternative investments? Blah, blah, blah. So what I'm looking for here are sound bites, aka video.
Yeah, you get lots of testimonials right away with this.
There. That's the first R, raving reviews. So the second R we get is, hey, Matthew, we got some interesting projects coming down the line. We got one that I think might be really interesting for you. Would you like to book in another quick little time and I can show you what that's all about? Probably going to say yes. If you've done a good job for them, boom. Reinvestment, get them to re-up. I mean, existing investors are the easiest, fastest capital you're ever going to get. And then the third R is referrals, right? So Matthew, that was a great interview. You can do it one of two ways. You can say, hey, do you know anybody else who'd be a good guest for the show? That's an easy one for you to say. So then you're going to introduce me to your successful professional friends, business owners, etc. I can get them on the show as a guest, start the conversation. Oh, by the way, when we're talking about the investment things, our mutual friend Matthew is an investor with us. Would you like to take a look at the kind of deals he's investing in? Or you can just go straight for it and say, hey, Matthew, you're always going to get first dibs on our deals, but sometimes we're raising quite a few millions of dollars. Do you know anybody else who might be interested in these kind of opportunities and get a direct referral that way? So you got the 3 R's. You're getting raving reviews, testimonials, you're getting re-ups or reinvestments, and you're getting referrals and warm introductions from interviewing your existing investors first.
That's awesome. I love it. You're able to, get so much benefit out of interviewing your current investors. It's insane. And I love the strategic way you're doing that because you're, the referral thing, the testimonials, new investment options that they can invest in, all these things and sound bites for your own,
all in one
marketing. All of that stuff is insanely valuable. Being able to put that on your own website and, have it listed there of interviews that you've had with 50 or 20 of your investors or, that kind of thing is huge. And I didn't even think about that. That's a great strategy to utilize and a lot of benefits you get out of it from doing that. Genius move. I love these little secret hacks like this. It's absolutely insanely awesome. Thank you so much, Dave, for imparting your knowledge on us on this stuff and some of the processes you put in place from the capital raise side for people and being able to help them develop that lead flow. And also, really the scripting and the content and the questions to ask and the thoughtfulness of those questions really help you strategically get from point A to point B as fast as possible and get you there. You're really framing the entire conversation the way you want it and getting a ton of benefit out of doing that. Really, really great stuff. I love it, man. So, well, thank you so much for coming today. If people want to reach out, how do they get in touch with you to try to work with you on this stuff and help you get help them get some leads?
Yeah, well, you can find me on definitely on LinkedIn. Especially if you're an active real estate investor, you want to be a guest on my show. Love to have you. Plus, it's a great way to reach out. Otherwise, if you're really interested in this whole using a podcast to connect with investors, raise capital, I put together an ebook on this called "How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month," and you can get that at the website is 20accreditedinvestorsbook.com. That's the number 20 accreditedinvestorsbook.com. Short and sweet. It's about 68 pages, large print. You can book a call with me after that if you're interested in having us work with you to make it all happen.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And if anybody wants more resources and tools and strategies and education, you can go to MatthewOwens.com. You can download our 200-point due diligence checklist that we use on any of our deals. We have master classes on raising capital and finding deals and analyzing them. We have other resources for you on how to analyze deals quickly and plug in numbers and get quick analysis done of your deals as well, and all different types of education at MatthewOwens.com. So thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, and thanks for
My
adding so much
pleasure.
value, man. Do you want to learn how to create financial freedom in your life through real estate and take your investing business to the next level? If so, you can follow us in one of the following ways. First, you can take one of our free webinars on how to analyze property, how to raise capital for real estate, and how to market and find deals. Three of the key pillars to becoming a successful real estate investor. Number two, you can join us on our mailing list where you'll get tips and tricks on real estate investing directly to your inbox. And number three, you can take our 6-month real estate course that teaches you every aspect of real estate investing you can think of, and more importantly, create financial freedom in your life through real estate investing strategies that I teach. If you want a master's in real estate in 6 months, this course is for you. We're going to go over how to raise money, promissory notes, syndications, fixing and flipping, buy and hold investing, tax and legal structures, self-directed retirement accounts, financial education, how to run a business, how to market and find your deals, and most importantly, how to create that financial freedom in your life so that you can stop trading your time for money and create passive real estate cash flow that you can live off of. If you're interested, go ahead and click on one of the links below, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.